Welcome to this edition of Jolene's Book and Writers Talk podcast. Today we will be talking with Gainesville, Florida author Mallory O'Connor. Mallory O'Connor is a multi-talented creative force, a respected art historian, novelist, and curator who brings together the worlds of art and storytelling. Her work explores the rich connections between visual and written mediums, offering unique perspectives that inspire and engage audiences. As a writer, O'Connor crafts compelling stories, including her acclaimed memoir, The Kitchen and the Studio, a memoir of food and art. This work highlights her passion for food and art as essential forms of creativity and expression. With each book she weaves thoughtful narratives that often draw from deep knowledge of history, culture, and the arts. Beyond her writing, O'Connor is a seasoned curator and art historian with a distinguished career in academia and exhibition planning. Her expertise in American art and her dedication to preserving cultural heritage have left a lasting impact on the art world. She is a storyteller in every sense of the word, whether she's writing fiction, sharing her experiences, or curating exhibitions that bring art to life. Mallory's career reflects her passion for blending creativity and scholarship. She continues to inspire readers and audiences through her multifaceted work. In this interview with Mallory, we discuss her transition from academia to writing fiction after retiring in 2005, highlighting her American River Trilogy, which explores immigrant families during the gold rush, and she will share insights on her cookbook, blending recipes with memoir, as well as her current paranormal sci-fi series, or Cli-Fi as she calls them. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to this podcast. If you would like to be on the podcast, check out my Southern Dragon Publishing website for our online forum. We will get you set up soon. And now, here's Miss Mallory.
I had a very interesting career in the academic world as an art history professor at the University of Florida and also at Santa Fe College, and also a very gratifying career with the city of Gainesville as director of the Thomas Center Gallery, where I was able to use my interest in art and art history to curate a number of exhibitions that I thought would provide a wide variety of artistic experiences for the community. And it was wonderful. I enjoyed all three of my careers. I guess you could say I've had three careers here in Gainesville, and they've all been very gratifying and interesting and met so many wonderful people. Just had an opportunity to try a bunch of different things, and I still get wonderful feedback from my former students. One the other day just came running up to me on a walking path and said, "Hi, you were my professor back in 1975. So that was really fun. And it's always nice to reconnect with people and know that you maybe made some little difference in some way in their life, or opened up a new door for them, or told them something they hadn't thought about. That's been wonderful. When we retired, however, in 2005, my husband, John, who's an artist, and I both said, "Oh, great. Now we have what we always wanted, an independent income. We can do whatever we want." So we both started writing. And John also continued his career in art. He's very known as an artist. He has art in collections in museums and private collections nationally and internationally, and has had 36 solo exhibitions of his work in various galleries around the country. He's had a wonderful career. I've been able to get so many really good ideas from him, work with him, and we've always been a team, a creative team, in terms of how we've approached what we're doing. And when we retired, I said, "Oh, I really love writing fiction. Now I can just do that to my heart's content. I don't have to worry about publishing for my professorial needs any longer." I always enjoyed that too. I published two academic books that I really enjoyed working on, but to be able to write fiction, that's a treat. So since I retired, the American River Trilogy, which is 3 historical fiction works set in Northern California and centering on 3 immigrant families, one Irish, one Japanese, and one Mexican, that came to that area during the gold rush. And then 100 years later, the descendants of those 3 families are all tangled up together in their lives and their careers and what they're doing. So those books have a lot to do with music and art and the people who are involved in those creative activities, along with a lot about immigration, about social issues and social justice, and the problems of the farm workers, people in the LGBTQ community. It has a lot of different directions. I'm interested in a lot of things, so I guess my characters get involved in a lot of things too.
Excellent. So the last book you published was the cookbook, and we talked about that.
The Kitchen and the Studio. Long story here, but it goes back to when I was a freshman art student at the University of California, Davis. My first art class that I took had a graduate assistant, and he was really cute and interesting. And we started talking, and that was in 1961, and 63 years later, we're still talking, never have run out of things to talk about. So after the semester was over, we were very professional now. He didn't ask me out until after the end of the semester. He asked me to come over to his house for dinner, and he cooked this wonderful dinner for me, crab louis and all this wonderful hors d'oeuvres and so on. And I said, oh my God, this is a keeper. Don't let this guy get away. So we've been bonding over food, among many other things. But his father was a chef, and my grandmother was a pastry chef, and also had a catering business at a time when most women didn't go into business. And my mother was just an intrepid culinary explorer. She always wanted, every time she moved, and she moved to 17 different states and Panama Canal Zone. So she did a lot of traveling. And everywhere she went, she collected recipes and special things, special items, and just really wanted to know all about the food scene in every place that she lived. So I was the recipient, the beneficiary of all of those different streams of information and interest. And my mother was a librarian also. So she had a wonderful collection of books that were always open to me, anything I could pick off the shelf and we'd read it and talk about it. But she also had 450 cookbooks. And she read cookbooks like some people read novels. She just went through them page by page. And so I got a lot of the cookbooks that she had, really wonderful historic books. So that was part of the situation. Then after John and I got married, I started keeping a journal of every time we had a special dinner or brunch or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I kept a list, a diary essentially, of all of these special occasions with what the menu was and what the recipes were and who was there and where we were and what wine we had, and then any kind of other little notes about funny things that happened or somebody that was a special guest or something. That was the template for our cookbook. It's a memoir as well as a cookbook, and just looks back at our 60 plus years together and all of the wonderful sorts of entertaining opportunities that we've taken advantage of and enjoyed so much. So it's really fun. Also, instead of taking photographs of the recipes, John did 107 original still lifes of each of the recipes. So those are included as illustrations in the cookbook. So I like to say that it's a cookbook, an art book, and a memoir and a love story. And it has all of those components in it.
Okay, do you ever watch or get on TikTok or Instagram and watch all the videos about cooking?
I've seen a lot, but I don't usually go to TikTok or Instagram. Golly, I'm really not quite sure how people have time to do all of that.
Oh, it's in the morning,
so busy.
It does take time, yes, but some of my best ideas lately have been coming from watching people create dishes. Um,
Hmm.
you know,
I may have to put that on my schedule. I do keep up with my Facebook page and always post things that I'm doing or new things that have come along or some of the recipes and so on, especially during the holidays, that I think people would be excited about. I got lots of likes on my Christmas cookies.
there you go. You can do a little video, show them how to make them right. Say, there's
Absolutely.
stuff in my book. Okay, what are you working on now?
I have also written a series of what the publisher calls paranormal fi books. Yes, paranormal because my protagonist is a psychic. She teams up with an ex-FBI arts crimes investigator, and they have been working together. He's a real skeptic, so they're a real team in terms of never, not all the time seeing each other's which direction they're going, but he has to admit that he can't explain how she sees some things that he doesn't and how they turn out to be correct. I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's based on my explorations at Casadega,
Oh,
the
yes.
spiritualist community down by DeLand, and I have several friends down there who were psychic mediums and have gotten a lot of information from them. And then as an art historian, I've always been interested in art crimes and art theft. And so it's fun. And then I tracked down a retired FBI art crimes investigator. So
Cool.
I can use her as a beta reader to vet these books. And I say Cli-Fi because each one also has an environmental issue
Okay.
that I'm interested in sharing with people. The first one, Epiphany's Gift, talks about fracking
Mm.
and why it is not a good idea. As you can see what happens to people in the book who are a little too close to where they're doing some fracking. The second one, Key to Eternity, gets into extinction issues. What happens when a particular animal or a particular plant goes extinct? That means we don't have it anymore. And what are the ramifications of that? The third one, Xanadu's Cavern, is about water resources, which are really significant here in Florida, trying to protect our springs, trying to make sure that our water aquifer is kept healthy. And there's a lot of problems now in terms of saltwater intrusion as we get sea level rise. That's an issue. So I want to make people aware of that. And I always have figured that if you want to tell somebody something, tell them a story because that way they're going to remember it. And I use that all the time in my art history classes because if you just tell people dry dates and titles and so on, they snooze off and it doesn't mean anything to them. But if you tell them the whole story behind a painting or a sculpture or whatever, they get excited about it. They want to know more. That it makes it something that they can relate to. And so that's always been a way that I've worked. And I like telling stories, even if I'm trying to make a point about something that I consider to be important. So right now I'm finishing up book 4 of that series, which is called Firehorse. And it's set right here in Ocala on a horse farm and has to do with drought and wildfires.
Yeah, they've had some times down there sometimes.
They have, absolutely. And we'll see more of it, unfortunately.
Mm.
So that's another, thing I want people to be aware of and think about and see what needs to be done and hopefully be able to take issue or at least maybe take issue with their votes
Yeah.
about who can help with these things. Very important.
Okay. I read somewhere today or yesterday that one of Stephen King, yes, Stephen King, like 5 or 6 of his books are now banned in Florida.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. His are
Yeah.
classics or tales that make you think.
Oh, I think that's the problem.
Oh, well, that could be, but you don't know of anybody personally who's had their book banned, have you?
I do, yes. I don't know Paul Ortiz.
Uh,
Paul was head of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Project at the University of Florida. and
Oh,
the author of several books about immigration and Latinx history and so on. And yeah, several of his books were banned. It's a terrible trend. We're going to get back to burning books in the city square. That's who's so afraid of these books, and they're afraid of the ideas, and it's pathetic.
mhm. Is Mr. Ortiz going to be at the Sunshine State Book Festival?
Unfortunately for all of us, Mr. Ortiz resigned his position at UF and moved to upstate New York to Cornell University.
I don't.
And I think they will definitely appreciate him there. He's a rare talent, a wonderful author, and a wonderful individual. And boy, he was doing great things here, but now he'll do great things there. So we lost a good one.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a member of any other writers group besides the Writers Alliance of Gainesville?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Florida Authors and Publishers. I'm also a member of the Northern California Publishers and Authors.
Oh, yeah.
When my trilogy was set in Northern California, the people there were very excited about it. And I did a great book talk in the area where the book was set. I got a little fan base out there. And so that's been interesting. I also involved with Writer's Digest. I take advantage of all the opportunities that they have in terms of webinars and that sort of thing. So yeah, I kind of branch out a little bit and get as much feedback as I can from a variety of sources.
Mhm. I was thinking maybe you would join some mystery groups, either Mystery Writers of America or Sisters in Crime or something like that with your Cli-Fi. It involves FBI.
Yeah, I could. I just
Well,
then when do you have time to write?
that's the other thing. Trying to
Ah,
get all the activities in and participate and volunteer and that sort of stuff.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And you can get swamped with that and not have time for yourself. And I don't know. I value my private time and my personal time. So I'm careful about what I get involved with.
I don't blame you. Okay. You're a traditionally published author. We talked about that before. And have you ever indie published anything?
Oh, yeah. Several of my books are hybrid publications. So that's like self-publishing. And the reason that I decided to do that, I've been traditionally published before, but if that's the case, then everybody takes care of you. If you try to just do indie self-publishing, I thought anyway, without any background, I didn't know where to start. So a hybrid publisher was a good choice for me because they do a lot of promotion and distribution and had all the contacts. And once I got on the road with that, I could see how you could do it, how you could put together something for yourself. But I didn't want to try to do that without knowing what I was doing. So the research has been really good. And I've actually enjoyed working with several of these hybrid publishers. I know they have a kind of a dubious reputation in terms of people saying, oh, that's just a vanity press and anybody can pay to get their book published. But if you're serious about wanting to get published and get your book out there, they can be invaluable, more than you could, I think, by yourself without any help. If
Okay.
you haven't got Harper Penguin and Simon and Schuster doing your work for you, you better figure out some way to do it yourself or have somebody that can show you the way.
So long as they don't try to hang on to your royalties, those should always be yours.
Yeah, that's a problem. Honestly, I know this is not a very popular position, but I really don't write to make money. I had a good career. I've got a good retirement income. I don't really have to please anybody except myself. And not that I don't want people to read my books or to enjoy them, but it's not something that's at the top of my priority list is to see how much money I can make on a book. If people buy it and like it, great. Sure, would I like more royalties? Of course, that would be nice, but I'll take what I get.
To each his own. Florida Authors and Publishers Association. I've been meaning to join that group myself. What are the advantages have you seen being a member?
Well, first of all, they have a very good conference every year. and have lots of good speakers, lots of agents, lots of ways to interact, good workshops. It's usually in Orlando, and it's usually 3 days, and I've found them to be really helpful in terms of networking. They also have a monthly newsletter and a magazine that they will publish members. If you have a book come out, or if you want to write something about a project you're working on or something about the industry, well, they'll take that into consideration and may publish it for you. Again, it's just a really good way to network and to get to find out what's going on in the Florida publishing world.
Okay, excellent. And what kind, if you were just starting out as a youngster, say in your 30s or 20s or whatever, just starting out in book writing and publishing business, what would you do different than what you've done so far?
Huh.
Is,
I really don't
is there
know.
anything you would do different? Put it that way.
Back in the day, and this would be the day of the late 70s, I had written a book called The Eden Conspiracy that had a very strong female lead and talked about some of this was when the women's movement was really just getting off the ground and starting to really fly. And I wanted to talk about women's issues, and I wanted to have a strong protagonist who could, address some of the issues at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was able to get an agent, a literary agent, Howard Morheim, who still has Morheim Literary Agency. And he tried to get my book published, but he had a problem because he said the publishers all said, oh, it's too feminist. And so I wasn't able to get that book published, and I gave up on it. And now I'm thinking back that I think I gave up too soon. Mm-hmm. So don't think that if something doesn't work out, that you can't take it to the next level or find somebody else or try another possibility. You have to think outside the box. And sometimes it's not easy. You keep feeling like, oh God, I'm just running around in circles. But I think it's important to keep going. And I kept coming back to writing, but it wasn't something that I had a full-time career and so on. So it was something I did on the side. And so I felt I could step back and just, let's put this on the shelf for a while. But if you're really serious about having a career as an author, I think you just have to be willing to keep going and take the hard knocks as they come and keep forging ahead. If you believe in your work, somebody else is going to believe in it too.
Okay. You are an educator and educated, but some of the other youngsters out there may not have been taking creative writing courses. Do you recommend them to I just started a creative writing course with UC Davis, online weekly lessons.
Really?
I've always been told you need to continue sharpening your skills. Is that what you would recommend for youngsters today?
The good news on that is, sure, take classes, get information, find out what the ins and outs of the publishing world are. So have somebody help you sharpen your skills, find a good group of people who can critique your work and give you ideas. Right. The bad side of that, some of the major writers that I've taken classes with are the most
obstinate,
narrow-minded people I've ever come across. They think if you don't do it this way, you're not doing it the right way, and they have a certain style in mind. I've run across this particularly with people who are modernists in terms of writing style. And if they look at one of my manuscripts, they cross out 3/4 of the words because, less is more. I'm sorry, sometimes less is less. I'm not a modernist in my taste when it comes to art. I appreciate the modernist style, which is either abstract expressionism or hard edge, geometric. But I also love impressionism. I also love expressionism. I also love all kinds of different styles. So if I want to mix a little antique style into my work, I'm going to do it, darn it. And you're not going to tell me you have to take out half of those words because Hemingway wouldn't have done it that way.
Definitely. You got to take what works for you and throw
Right.
the rest.
Keep some kind of vision of who you are in there and don't let people trample on it too much. I mean, get good advice, but look through your own lens.
As a writer myself, sometimes I get confused by the jargon, the tropes, and the genres and all that. So I keep looking those up and get different opinions. But one of the things that seems to be confusing me is my voice. How do you define a writer's voice to be true to?
I think it's like trying to paint a self-portrait.
Oh,
What are the really important parts of what you are? When you look in the mirror, what are you seeing? You're seeing an image, but what are you seeing behind that? What goes into that? What experiences, what background, what ideas, what has made you? And if you can find a way to express that, then I think that's your voice. And whether other people agree with it, they could say, oh, no, you can't really look like that because that's not trendy. I don't care what's trendy. And to be authentic, that's the main thing. Your voice needs to be an authentic portrait of you, of who you are, what's important to you, what you love, what you hate,
mhm.
everything like that. Be true to yourself.
Okay. Now, here's one that's fun. Everybody asks about point of view when you're writing a story. Academics are usually third person point of view or
Yeah.
telling the story. But when you're writing fiction stories, you have to do first person or third person or omniscient, or I'm not sure what all they are, but that's what we're practicing in creative writing this week is writing different points of view and how the scene and dialogue changes between the two. What do you like? Some people hate first person point of view. Some people would rather be third person.
It depends on what you're doing. The book that I mentioned, the Davidson, was written in the first person, and you never found out who that person was. Um, they told the story, but who were they? You didn't know when you got to the end of the book whether the narrator was a man or a woman
Mhm.
or a friend or not, and that was a ton of fun. I loved that because you could take a long distance view of things and then do a close-up and come up with something and describe something, and but you had a little bit of distance there also. I enjoy doing that. Now when I'm writing fiction, usually I just have to let my characters rattle away. They make all the decisions anyway, so
Mhm.
so they'll tell me what their point of view is, and I'd better listen. Gosh, it's like having a discussion with my cat.
I
You
like
don't
writing
really.
that way too. I just let each character come on stage and do what they want to do. And,
Yes,
we'll worry about the back end once we get finished.
revision. But you can always go back and say, oh, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And one of the good things that I have in terms of having a really solid, helpful partner is that I read a lot of my work as I'm doing it to my husband.
Mhm.
And he's a good critic and will say, I go, wait, you skipped something there. I don't understand this. Why would they do that? And so he's able to give me a kind of firsthand crit so that I am constantly refining what it is that I'm doing as I'm working on it. And
Mhm.
then when I get done, I really love to have beta readers and editors. And so then the characters themselves are going to argue the heck out of you anyhow. Uh, yeah, I would never have said that. What makes you think I would say that? So, sorry.
I know we're just psychotic in here. There's too many of them in there. Y'all need to get
That's
out.
right. That's the fun of it.
Okay, the other thing that I was curious about, do you like to have everything outlined before you start, or just the broad strokes, or do you just go for it?
I'm not a real plotter. but I don't think I'm a real pantser either. I like to know in general where I'm going, but then I want the story to take me to the next step. So if something comes up that I wasn't expecting, and that happens a lot, I was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Of course, we need to go this way now. So I have an idea, I have an overall concept and probably a rough outline of the whole thing. So I know generally where it's going. But I love having happy surprises in the meantime that maybe lead me into something I wasn't expecting or that I hadn't thought of. And characters are great for that. They'll let you know if they have another idea that they want you to explore. So listen to your
Okay.
characters.
Okay, last up. What advice would you give someone in regards to getting an agent? That's a mystery. How do you get an agent to be your advocate or even to accept you, perhaps?
I think that used to be a lot easier than it is today. And the way I got an agent was that the University of Florida used to have wonderful writing seminars, and
Okay.
they had main authors down, Morrison, John Knowles, just major people who came in and they would read your manuscript and then they would give you feedback. So with my book, The Davidson Process, none other than John Knowles, a separate piece, wonderful book. I can't remember whether it won the Pulitzer or something else, but big prize winner, big seller back in the day, read my manuscript. And then I had an appointment to go and see him. And I got to the appointed place and he wasn't there and he was late. And so I was standing there nibbling my fingernails. And he came up and said, sorry, I'm late. This won't take long. And I was like, of course it won't. He said, you better get another major. But what he said is, I love this book. I'm taking it to my agent. Now that doesn't happen very much anymore, I think, because it's unless you've got a heck of a network. But he did, and his agent didn't take it, but she passed it on to Howard Morheim, who then contacted me to represent me. Now I think you really have to struggle to get an agent. You have to know how to write the right kind of proposal and query letter. You have to identify who your audience is, what your platform is as an author, how this is going to sell, because these days selling is everything. And if you don't have a commercial product, if you don't have something that a publisher is going to say, oh yeah, I could sell 1 million copies of that. Yeah, I don't think Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings could have gotten published today. Well, I don't think Hemingway could. I think their work would have been too esoteric and they say, oh no, limited audience, who cares about some kid that lives in the Everglades? But so I think it's really much more difficult, and I'm afraid that it has gone rogue capitalist on us in terms of publishing houses being most interested in making money. And I hate everything being reduced to money. That's ridiculous. But art is art, and it ought to stay away from that. But anyway, yeah, I think if you want an agent today, you have to jump through the hoops. And their Writer's Digest, which is very helpful on that level, every month gives you a list of agents who are looking for clients, and they will tell you what they're looking for, theoretically anyway. And if you see something, then follow their instructions. Send them what they ask for, do it the way they want. If they want email, if they want snail mail, whatever, however it is, they say they want to, they're the ones holding the cards. So you have to play their game. But yeah, of course, you're not going to get a big time traditional publisher without an agent. That's almost impossible anymore. So if you want Simon and Schuster and Penguin and so on to look at your book, find an agent and see if they'll help you.
All righty. Miss Mallory, thank you so much for being on today's Jolene's Books and Writers podcast. And we look forward to your next book. Thank you for tuning in to today's episodes. If you enjoyed our conversation, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our podcast. It helps us bring you even more amazing content. And hey, if you're an author, narrator, publisher, entertainment lawyer, agent, or anyone working in the book industry. We'd love to hear from you. Head over to southerndragonpublishing.com and fill out our online form to connect with us. Let's keep building this incredible community together. Until next time, happy listening.